In this video, I'm going to define cognitive psychology, and this is based on the information in your Goldstein textbook. So you are encouraged to also read that for even more information than I will be able to provide here. And we'll also discuss the origins of cognitive psychology. So first, when you think about all that the mind can do, our mind is capable of doing a number of tasks all at the same time. So your book gives an example of someone walking across campus going to meet a friend, and they are perceiving things, they are attending to certain things that are going on in their environment. Maybe they're remembering that they may have left their curling iron on at the house. There's also some emotion going on there. There also might be problem solving, like there's an obstacle in my path and I have to take care of that while I'm also thinking about these other things. So this is an example of what we call cognitive load, and we are going to talk about that in the attention chapter, but you will also begin thinking about that this week in the discussion. So these are just examples of what our mind is capable of. For cognitive psychology, we study how the brain is related to behavior. So how we study the mind is what we will cover in the next few sections here. Cognition itself refers to the mental processes that are happening, including perception, attention, memory, and other things that we'll be discussing like judgment and problem solving throughout the semester. This just gives you an overview of what we're going to talk about. This video will contain only a review of the very first experiment in reaction time by Donders, but we will also review these other psychology topics, including the forgetting curve, behaviorism, and conditioning. So you will see all the way back in 1868, Donders had the idea that something might be going on behind the scenes, if you will. Now imagine in 1868, this would not have been on a computer because we did not have these yet, but this is a modern adaptation of Donders' reaction time experiment. So it might have been at the time that a hand was flashed and someone had to make some type of movement to indicate that they saw that. As we developed electricity, you might think of this as a light bulb flashing and someone having to respond to it. So the first is just a simple reaction time. Someone sees a stimulus and has to respond. The second is that you have to make a decision about what's being presented to you. So in this example, the gentleman on the left is just pressing J when the light goes on, but in the image on the right, he has to decide, am I pressing J if the light is on the left, or am I pressing K if it's on the right? So that decision is what Donders wanted to look at. This was the hypothesis here. So when a light flashes, you perceive the light and you press button. There is no decision in there, but then when you have to make a decision in that B column, something else is happening in there. There's a mental response. So what did happen was that Donders observed 1/10 of a second longer to make a choice than just a simple reaction time test. So what we learned from this now 150 years ago is that whatever is happening in our minds, whatever mental processes are happening, cannot be measured directly, but we can make inferences based on behavior. So cognitive psychologists in the very early times were observing behavior and trying to see what they could tell from that. And in our next video, we will talk about the remaining initial cognitive psychologists.